money out of the Treasury in accordance with Section 51, Article 6 of the Constitution.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The gentleman from the 96th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the bill take effect July 1, 2023.
The question is...
Wait a minute, Mr. Speaker. I move that the bill take effect from passage.
The gentleman from the 96 moves that the bill take effect from passage. Is there debate on the amendment? If not, all those in favor of the motion, is there debate on the motion? If not, the question is, shall the bill take effect from its passage? All those members in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. How will the gentleman like to be recorded? In the affirmative. The clerk will please mark the gentleman from the 62nd as voting in the affirmative. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. The yeas are 92, the nays are 1. 7 members absent and not voting. 2/3 of the members elected to the House having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill will take effect upon passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 423, increasing salary for certain state employees.
The objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read. If not, gentleman the 12th to explain the bill.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. The bill increases the annual salaries of members of The bill increases the annual salaries of members of the West Virginia State Police, public school teachers, public service personnel beginning July 1, 2023. The salary schedule set forth in this statute as follows. For professional educators and professional student support personnel, collectively teachers, $2,300 an increase in annual pay based on a 200-day per year contract. For public school service personnel, $230 slash $115 increase on monthly pay. Note, the 230 slash 115 difference is because a service personnel contract is to work more than 3.5 hours a day. The raise is $230 a month. Others for 3.5 hours or less is $115 a month. For members of the state police and certain civil forensic lab personnel, $2,300 annual pay. Unlike in prior years where the pay raise for education and state employees were effectively given across the board pay raise approximately 5% on the average of their respective group aggregate salaries. Likewise, the state police were given an across the board pay raise equal to approximately 5% on the average across state employee aggregate salaries, except last year when the state police got a $10,000 per raise. This provides for a $2,300 per year pay raise for all of them. All salary increases in this bill will become effective July 1, 2023. I urge passage.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill was advanced to third reading with the general right to amend yesterday. So at this time, the chair will ask the clerk to please report the first of the amendments.
The Committee on Finance moves to amend the bill, beginning on page 12.
Are there objections to having the amendment explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the chair will recognize the gentleman the 12th, Doug Chris, to explain the amendment.
The amendment would correct a transposition number that would have inadvertently given state police personnel as administrative support specialist class 6 less than the $2,300 raise everyone else was going to get. And the chairman of finance didn't do that since I was dyslexic. Sorry about that. I didn't do it. Urge adoption. Thank you.
Question is, shall the amendment be adopted? The gentleman from 52nd Nugget Row. Is there debate on the amendment explained by the gentleman from the 12th? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that amendment adopted. The clerk will please report the next amendment.
Delegate Chris moves to amend the bill on page 3, section 5, line 44, following the Roman numeral 6, by striking out the numbers 65,242, or no, by striking out the number 67,524 and inserting in lieu thereof the numbers 67,524, 542.
Questions on the amendment just read by the clerk? Question again is on the amendment just read by the clerk. Is there debate on the amendment read by the clerk? If not, those in favor of adoption of this amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that amendment adopted. The clerk will please report the next of the amendments.
Delegate Foggin moves to amend the bill on page 9, line 10, by striking subsections C and D and relettering the remaining subsections accordingly.
The question is on the amendment just read by the clerk. Is there debate on this amendment? The amendment is open for debate. Does the gentleman wish to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr.
The
Speaker.
gentleman is recognized.
Yes, I don't know if I need to ask for a Rule 49 right now, being a school teacher.
Let's deal with that globally.
Okay.
For all those members of the body who seek a ruling by the chair pursuant to House Rule 49 as to your eligibility to vote on the bill or all underlying amendments to the bill, please press your voting buttons at this time to be registered with the clerk. All members who wish a ruling by the chair pursuant to House Rule 49, please press your voting button now. The clerk will please close the machine and log those members having sought a ruling under Rule 49. It will be the ruling of the chair that all members who have sought such a ruling are similarly situated and constitute a class of greater than 5 individuals and therefore are eligible to vote on this and all questions related to the bill. Which brings us back again to the primary amendment read by the clerk. Gentleman from the 14th, the sponsor, Douglas Foggin, is recognized for debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment would strike language that gives a math teacher or a special ed teacher a 3-year increase in pay over every other teacher. When's the last time you listened to a radio? Maybe thank a choir teacher. Watched a movie, maybe the drama teacher. Looked at artwork around here, maybe the art teacher. Used the legislative process, maybe a history teacher, social studies teacher. When's the last time you read a bill? Maybe an English teacher. When's the last time you did a geometric proof? Solved a matrix, found the derivative or integral of a function. This is a non-discriminatory amendment. There's some tension amongst staffs of different schools because certain people are singled out as being more important than others. I just ask that we strike that out and make all the teachers pay the same. That's all. Thank you.
Question again is on the amendment read by the clerk. The gentleman from the 12th, Douglas Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge rejection of the amendment for the purposes of the teacher's salary schedule. This amendment would eliminate 3 additional years of experience incentive for 1, classroom teachers providing math instruction in teachers' certified area of study for at least 60% of the time the teachers provided instruction to students, and for number 2, classroom teacher certified in special ed and employed as a full-time teacher, special ed teacher. I urge rejection.
Gentleman from number 38, Douglas Ellington, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm also going to urge rejection of this. This incentive was given for shortage areas for both math teachers and special ed teachers. We're talking about roughly 3,600 teachers that received this 3-year step increase at the present time. And again, since these are continue to be shortage areas, I would recommend that we can continue the incentive and oppose the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 98th, Douglas Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Education Chair yield?
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the legislature in previous sessions, we have voted to provide these incentives in order to help fill these hard-to-fill positions. Am I correct?
I believe this was in 2018, that'd be effective in 19.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this amendment effectively would prevent the legislature from fulfilling its commitment that was made by the legislature to provide these incentives to help fill these hard-to-fill positions. I'd urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman from the 20th, Douglas Foster is recognized.
Thank you. Does the Chair of Education yield?
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, would this effectively lower the pay of math teachers around
It
the state?
would, approximately $1,500 to $1,600 a year.
All right, thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from the 12th, Douglas Chris, speak recognition?
Point of order, sir. Noticing that this amendment takes in special ed teachers, my daughter is a special ed teacher in Wirt County, and I suggest a Rule 49.
The chair has granted Rule 49 exemption to all members of the body who sought it. Did the gentleman seek?
No, sir, I didn't realize until I saw the amendment.
Understood. Well, under that set of facts, then, it will be the ruling of the chair that the gentleman does belong to a class of greater than 5 individuals and therefore is eligible to vote on this question.
Thank you,
Gentleman
sir.
from the 14th, Douglas Falk, is recognized again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the gentleman from the 38th to yield for a question, please.
Yes, sir.
I try to make decisions based on data. Could you provide me with data in the last 3 years that the number of math teachers have gone up because of this?
That I can't say. What I can tell you is numbers that were provided to me. There was a total of 3,594 teachers currently receiving the 3-year step increase. 1,288 of those are math teachers, 2,288 are special ed, and 18 are considered certified both.
Thank you. So you can't provide data that shows me the number went up because we increased pay for a math teacher. Would the delegate from the 98th yield for a question?
Certainly, my friend.
Can you provide data to me that proves the number of math teachers have gone up?
I cannot. I don't have access, or at least readily available. What I can say, as I alluded to during my questioning with the education chair, the legislature has made this commitment to provide these step increases for these hard-to-fill positions. So I see it really as a question of, are we going to fulfill that commitment that this legislature has made? And I regrettably believe that if adoption of your amendment would preclude the legislature from fulfilling that commitment. So that's why I've urged rejection.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think the legislature also made a commitment on PEIA, and you didn't mind going against that commitment. But you don't have any data. No one has any data to show that the number of math teachers needed has gone down. That's all I'm asking for, is to make a data-driven decision. I like data. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 40th, Douglas Cooper, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A little history on what we're talking about here. When I first came here years ago, I introduced a bill to do just what we're talking about today, and it took until 2018, I believe it was, in Senate Bill 205, those things were rolled into it for special ed, science, I believe, and math. Of course, there's no data to see if it's improved, but how many people remained teaching? How many people stayed teaching math? And especially, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Speaker, we have dozens, if not hundreds, of special ed certified teachers who are not teaching in that field. And so there is no data to say how many of them have returned to that field because they're still employed by the same school system, so there's really no records we can track here. But I would say at this point, let's reject this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question still is on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there debate on the amendment read by the clerk? If not, Chair will recognize the sponsor, the gentleman from the 14th, to close debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity. Without any data to back up the claim that we have more math teachers now or more special ed teachers now because of the 3-year bump on seniority pay, I'd like to urge adoption so all teachers are paid the same amount.
Debate on the amendment has been closed. Question before the House is adoption of the amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. No. The noes have it. Chair declares that amendment lost. The clerk will please report the next amendment.
Delegate Foggin moves to amend the bill on page 9, line 17, after the period by inserting the following. Math instruction includes a teacher providing physics and chemistry instruction.
The question is on the amendment read by the clerk. Chair will recognize the sponsor, a gentleman from the 14th, Delegate Foggin, to open debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment would recognize that someone who teaches physics or chemistry also teaches math 60% of the time. That's it.
Gentleman from the 97th, Delegate Hardy.
Mr. Speaker, without going into too much detail and embarrassing anybody, I rise in opposition to this amendment because this could be one of the most self-serving amendments I've ever seen before in my life. So therefore, I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman from the 99th, Delegate Clark, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise against the amendment, and the sponsor of the amendment just earlier said that he wanted to reduce the service so all teachers are paid the same, but now he wants to include other teachers so they're paid more. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I urge rejection of the amendment.
Gentleman from the 38th, Delegate Ellington, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I'm going to urge rejection of this amendment also. Math instruction is very important in physics and chemistry. A significant portion of both of those subjects includes mathematics. However, we just passed a budget that is set as far as the state aid formula. If we change this or approve this, then we have to go back and change that. So I think that would be a little more of a concern. However, I will note, you know, I had House Bill 2828, which was to increase the starting salary of all of our teachers to the 50th percentile from our surrounding states, and that would go from 36,695 up to 44,000 starting salary, and I intend to do that next year, so that may solve the problem for the gentleman in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question still is on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there debate on the amendment as read by the clerk? If not, Chair will recognize the sponsor to close debate on the amendment.
Speaker, that'll be it.
Okay, the question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment, roll call is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 15 ayes, 79 nays, 6 members absent, less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares the amendment lost. Clerk will please report the next amendment.
Delegate Foggin moves to amend the bill on page 9, line 19, after the word superintendent by inserting the words or licensed as a speech-language pathologist.
The question is on the amendment just read by the clerk. Chair will recognize the sponsor, gentleman from the 14th, to open debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This would include the special ed teachers, speech-language pathologists as special ed teachers and give them the same benefits as the section does to all other special ed teachers.
The question is still on the amendment read by the clerk. Gentleman from the 34th, Delegate Dean, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll stand in support of the amendment. Speech pathologists do IEPs. They do all the work that special ed teachers do for their students, so I think they should qualify. Thank you.
Is there other debate on the amendment as read by the clerk? Gentleman from the 38th, Douglas Ellington, is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time, I'm going to probably recommend also that we reject this particular amendment at this time. This has been a subject that's been before us in the past years. It is an important issue, but I think this needs to be corrected into the coming session, and not at this time. Again, we're going to change the state aid formula at this point. We just approved the budget. That's just going to cause some more muddy in the waters on that. So I would urge rejection at this particular time, but I think this is something to be entertained in the future. Thank you.
Again, the question is on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there other debate on the amendment as read by the clerk? If not, Chair will recognize the sponsor to close debate on the amendment. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it. That's all.
The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Roll call is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 25 ayes, 68 nays, 7 members absent, less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares the amendment lost. Are there other amendments to the bill?
Delegates Fluharty, Scaff, and others move to amend the bill.
Are there objections to allowing this amendment to be explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Chair recognizes the sponsor, the gentleman from the 5th, to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment's very simple. So since we know that this increasing salary for certain state employees is not actually an increase because we're going to take all that money back, which we just voted on a little bit ago, this actually is an increase. $2,300 across the board for our teachers, school service personnel, state police, starting in 2024. Pretty simple. It's the actual increase. Right now we have the fake increase. This is the real increase via this amendment. And I'll reserve the right to close and ask for yeas and nays. Thank you.
Question is on the amendment as just explained by the sponsors. Gentleman from the 12th, Douglas Chris, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. The $2,300 that is in this pay schedule is forever. It's a base build. It's going to be there forever. And allowing another pay increase for next year at this time is not the right way to do that. Let us bring this forward, if you so desire, next year based upon the economy and based on the collections of tax revenues for the state, and we can discuss it at that time. So I urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman from the 50th, Douglas Pritt, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I mean, we just did a pay raise for the governor and the Board of Public Works, so, you know, we have the money now. There's no guarantee we will after we pass this tax cut bill. We might end up like Kansas, have to come back in here and pass more taxes just to fix the mess we've made. We have it now. It's guaranteed now. Let's give it now. Vote yes.
Question still is on the amendment as explained by the sponsors. Is there debate on the amendment? If not, Chair will recognize the sponsor to close debate on the amendment.
The gentleman just said we went ahead and said, hey, in 2025, the governor gets more money, the state auditor gets more money, the attorney general gets more money, and we're saying today our teachers, educators, state police, they get a little bit of money now that we're going to take away from them, and you get no money in the future. That's what we're doing. So what this amendment does is actually gives them a reality of seeing money in their pockets instead of the government handing it to them and taking it right back, which we're doing today. This would be an actual increase to their salary, actual return on the investment they've been making to this state, so they can actually use it instead of just handing it right back. So, you know, we need to probably change the title of that as well, because it's not really an increasing salary if you're going to take it right back. But, you know, that's how we do things. Yeas and nays. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Debate on the amendment has been closed. Is the roll call to vote demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 18 ayes, 73 nays, 9 members absent, less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares that amendment lost. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the clerk will please read the bill a third time. Before the clerk reads the bill a third time, for the benefit of all members, the gentleman from the 12th, Delegate Chris, explained the first of the 2 amendments considered today. Both amendments were adopted. Chair and the clerk are informed that when the chairman presented the 2 amendments, they were presented transposed. So the explanation for the first amendment was given second, and the explanation for the second amendment was given first. At this time, would any member like to reconsider the votes taken on either of the first 2 amendments? If not, the votes on those 2 amendments will stand. Clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 423, increasing salary for certain state employees.
The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 94th, Delegate Kump, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to speak?
Gentleman is recognized.
I'm voting yea, but I wish it was more.
Gentleman from the 52nd, Delegate Rowe, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the chair would answer a question or two.
Surely will, my friend.
Now, we're giving pay raises in this bill, but do you know if there will be pay raises to the people who are paid out of special revenues included in the budget?
We anticipate they'll be included.
Okay. There were a number of cuts to higher education. I just wondered if those were cuts of the pay raises to higher education.
That was the 5% that the governor had acknowledged in his budget bill, and all the reductions, where I read the reductions,
Yes.
that was the 5% part that we did not take up 5% pay raises in our budget process.
So higher ed employees didn't get any pay raises?
No, sir, they did not, but they will participate. The ones that are covered by general revenue and that our state employees will participate in this $2,300,
Okay.
but not special revenues.
Okay. So if they made special revenues, they're in higher education, they don't get any pay raise at all?
That'll be up to the management of the particular colleges that have the ability to spend those special revenues and on their spending authority.
Okay, but we didn't give the higher education colleges or universities any money to do that with, right?
No, sir, we did not.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from the 47th, Delegate Longenacre, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair of finance yield for me just a minute?
Sure will.
I
Thank you.
apologize, it's been a long day, but I got a quick question, sir. Just to be clear, the bill that we are voting on right now to increase salaries of those critical workers out there, if this bill should fail, then the previous bill that we passed, which raises their premiums, just simply comes out of their bottom line. So at the end of the day, we got to pass this bill so that they achieve that net neutral that the governor spoke of the other day. Is that correct?
That's correct, part of the package.
Thank you.
Question still is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentlemen from the 12th wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 423, increasing salary for certain state employees.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the